John Blake presents The Godfather of British Crime by Freddie Foreman, narrated by Nick Reynolds. Before we start, I thought you might like to know, Freddie Foreman was a close and old friend of my father, Bruce Reynolds, who was the architect of what has become known as the Great Train Robbery. In fact, they once nearly robbed a gold bullion train together, but that's another story. Freddie is a legend in the history of British crime, who also happens to be my godfather, so it brings me great pleasure in narrating his story for you. Brown bread, dead. One London criminal is known admiringly among his peers as Brown Bread Fred, after the number of bodies, rightly or wrongly attributed to him. Gang slang, a dictionary of criminal slang. People do get over familiar. I was at a boxing show and a guy said, "Hi Fred, have you killed anyone recently?" I just stopped and looked at him. I said, "The night is not over yet." Freddie Foreman, The Book of Criminal Quotations. Prologue. The snowfall began late on Good Friday, blanketing the hills of northeast England and the Midlands. By Saturday it had painted white the entire eastern side of Britain, from Scotland to Norfolk. As Sunday slowly became Easter Monday, light snowflakes began to drift across East London, dissolving into the tarmac of Curtain Road and scattering across the yard of the famous Security Express depot. The air was as crisp as a £5 note, and, while snow at this time of year was most unusual, for the 5 men crouched behind the walls and buildings of that yard, it was the only part of the morning that was unplanned. They'd carefully pinpointed the section of wall unscrutinised by the electronic gaze of closed-circuit television and dropped over. They'd calculated that they could hide inside this fortress, known to locals as Fort Knox, completely undetected, and, most importantly, they had learned that one man's routine of an early morning cuppa would leave the entire alarm system temporarily disabled and the treasures locked deep inside the building open for the taking. As these 5 men sat waiting through the night, they contemplated what would be the most audacious crime ever undertaken in London's square mile: to rob the headquarters of Security Express of £7 million in cash. The red brick complex had 12-foot-high walls and steel-shuttered doors. Alarms and cameras were strategically placed around the entire building, and it was considered impenetrable. The next most difficult job would have been to relieve the Tower of London of the crown jewels. "What's the time?" whispered one man for a third time. Nearly 4 o'clock was the hushed reply. The floor was ice-cold beneath them, and the weight almost unbearable. As is normal on a holiday weekend, the city of London was a ghost town, yet the firm were alert to every sound. Goods trains rumbled along the steel tracks, their brakes screeching along the approach to nearby Liverpool Street Station. The mild hum of a motorbike would occasionally zoom down the adjoining Great Eastern Street, while distant sirens caused the more nervous members of the gang to prick up their ears, their minds racing with images of squad cars, armed response units, and dogs. "What time is it now?" the voice came again. "It's still nearly 4 o'clock. "For fuck's sake, shut up," came another voice in the darkness. As the figure leaned forward into the sodium light, all that was visible was a plastic fancy-dress party mask in his right hand. No one said a word for the next few hours. They knew that escape routes had been planned, vehicles assembled, safe houses prepared and route familiarisation practised. The firm were at work on a regular basis, so tools were constantly in use and were already at hand, but strict instructions had been given that nobody should get hurt. Threatened, yes, but no physical violence. Everyone involved would wear face masks and gloves, and everything brought inside the premises would be taken away. This included cigarette butts, apple cores, and even tissue paper. No clues would be left behind for forensic examination. Above the gang's hiding place, high above the floodlights that cast deep
Sample complete. Ready to continue?